Good morning, my loves. Dijana here from Dijana.org, and this morning I'm going to record the Mentoring for Awakening episode number 22, and I'm going to talk to you about the twin mission. I want to say welcome to you. I want to invite you to watch this with an open heart and an open mind. This particular episode feels like it could be really important. It's really important for me as well. It's really quite intimate, and I'm going to share with you my direct channels, my past life experiences, and how I have come to contribute and experience this journey. So I hope that this offers, this video, I give it justice to start off with, because some of it I might find a little bit challenging to talk about, and I'll explain why in a moment. I hope I give it justice. I hope you receive some insight, if helpful, in your personal journey, and I hope that you can feel that I am, of course, intending to do this from my personal integrity and from my direct experience. So this is an offering as guided by my divine team. So just to touch base on what I said before, part of the reason why I feeling, even as I speak within myself, a sort of I guess perhaps you could say a hesitation to speak about this topic at such an intimate level, or in such an intimate way, is because, of course, over linear time, over the last 5,000 or so years, there has been this veil of secrecy around this divine mission. The twin flame phenomenon, if you will, is not new. It's collectively, in terms of awareness, much more widespread now, but it's not new per se. And because of the different times in history, as this has played out, there's been a great veil of secrecy that's surrounded this particular trajectory of evolution of divine consciousness and remembering our divine nature. So part of the mission, straight up, is to as we evolve and ascend, to strengthen the throat chakra so that we can confidently and with that backbone, with that internal strength, deliver divine truth by speaking divine words, or speaking essentially about this in that divine high vibrational way. Because whether you're a twin or you're a soul mate, or the definition of divine mission, as in light worker, etc., all of us, when we speak in alignment with our divine self, then the words we speak are divine codes of light. It's a transmission. So speaking about this will obviously be an offering of into the world that is in direct alignment of, you know, many aspects of my divine self. And because this has over eons been shrouded in secrecy for the fear of persecution and judgment and all sorts of horrendous things. Of course, those of us on the journey are familiar with this. Many of us have had, you know, instances of persecution as a direct result of, you know, lifetimes where we've, anyway, you know the story. I don't need to go there. So part of this, even now, this internal hesitation is, you know, will I give it justice? Can I express myself in that high vibrational way to justify that, not to justify, to give it justice, to give the story justice, to give the mission really justice, and offer the best possible version of this to the collective. And then, of course, breaking that seal, those vows of silence. As I talk about this, I am actually not familiar. I'm sure that there are many that have spoken of this in this way, but I haven't heard anybody speak of this in this way. So please bear with me, and I hope you get something out of this. Okay. So that's sort of the introduction of this. I now want to offer you a disclaimer of sorts, and also say, as part of this disclaimer, I actually sat down and wrote notes around this, as I do every week, but I found myself writing and writing and writing, and in fact I wrote 4 pages worth of notes as an offering for this particular episode. I'm going to try and be really to stick to the plan, and what felt as the right information to offer you. So I will refer probably a little bit more commonly to my notes, or whenever necessary. Okay. The disclaimer is as follows. My journey begins back, my journey of twin begins back in the dark ages. I actually have a direct past life memory of this, which I'm going to share with you. By default, the Dark Ages are a part of our history that is most commonly related to the fall of the Roman Empire. After Jesus had already been crucified and reincarnated. So a lot of the story that I'm about to tell you actually has a lot to do with Christ consciousness, if you will, with Jesus and Magdalene, with the archangels, saints, and the associated, I guess, divine team that guides my journey. The disclaimer has to do with not just that, because what I don't want to do is my intention is not at all to promote any kind of religion, because this is not a religious story. I, in this life, was actually born in former Yugoslavia, which, if you know your geography and maybe a little bit of history, is actually a socialist communist country. I went to church I remember going to church only twice in my life. When I was very little, I was like 4 or 5 years old with my grandfather, and I liked all the candles that were in church. That's about the extent of my religious upbringing. To this day, I have never read the Bible. I am not interested in that version of the events. Therefore, I say this in my disclaimer so that you understand that all of my knowledge, all of my insight, and all of my memories come directly from source. I don't go to anybody else's, not in this life. That is not true for past lives, but for this life, my insight, my wisdom, the memories I hold are all directly from source. If you, understood what it's like to grow up in a socialist communist country, you would know why it would seem absolutely absurd that I can even talk about anything like this. So, but I'm going to leave that with you. I've offered that disclaimer, so here we go. Okay, so I'm going to start with explaining to you how this came about for me. As I mentioned before, my memory of my journey starting as a twin, it begins in the Dark Ages. Now, the Dark Ages, I actually looked this up so that I have, I can offer a human logical, I guess, timeline to this journey. So the Dark Ages are classified as being from about 500 to 1000 AD. Now, AD stands for Anno Domini, which is Latin for the year of our Lord. To give you perspective, Jesus was born, if you Google it, like I said, research it. Jesus was born, according to historical documents and those that do this work, somewhere between 6 to 4 BC. So that's before Christ. BC stands for before Christ. He preached somewhere between 27 to 29 AD. So again, AD stands for Anno Domini, which is the year of our Lord, or the birth of, maybe if you will, Christianity or something along those lines. And he was crucified somewhere between, so he only preached for about 2 to 3 years, and he was crucified somewhere between 30 to 36 AD. Okay. Fast forward to 500 to 1000 AD, so that 500-year part of the human history referred to as the Dark Ages. I remember myself being a young monk, serving the Lord, of course, and I was one of the few. I was a young man, and I was one of the few that could write. So my job in the monastery was to write history, basically. So I have recollections of what the monastery looked like inside. I have recollections of the special rooms where the rolls of parchment were held, and I would write extensively with like a fountain pen looking thing, but it's really a feather. I would write extensively, historical notes and channels from God, my own inner journey, etc. And to get to this special writing room, or, you know, scribing room, I had to go down a staircase from the church downstairs. It was a really special, you know, room that was lit with candles. And it was a spiral staircase is what I remember. But the other thing that I also remember is that regularly when the church and everybody else was asleep, I would go outside of the church. So what I remember, this monastery actually is a little bit like, if you look up, if you Google Mont Saint-Michel Abbey in France. So it's this monastery that's like on an island. And so my recollection is of a monastery being like on an island surrounded with water. I think it was a lake. And so I would exit the monastery and stand on the shores of the lake and look up into the sky, and I would pray to Christ, to God, to be in greater service, that because just writing the parchment didn't seem like it was enough, so I would pray to God to be in greater service to him. My prayers are answered at some point, obviously, because then I remember kneeling in front of the, you know, in like, you know, the next chapter, I remember kneeling in front of Yeshua, Jesus. I remember Archangel Michael there. And okay, so this is the bit that's difficult to say out loud. I remember beloved Magdalene being there. I remember the archangels being there. In particular, to the right, your left, as you're looking at me, to over the right shoulder, or to the right of Yeshua, was Archangel Michael with the sword of truth. And so I remember being on my knees. I remember Yeshua decreeing that I have been called to greater service. And then I remember basically the sort of truth. And of course, I don't know whether this literally happened, but I remember sort of being my divine self, my soul being sliced into two. The decree had to do with following in the footsteps of Jesus Christ, or Yeshua and Magdalene themselves, who were actually not the original twins. The Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve were initially intended, the way I understand, were initially intended to bring unity in physical form on planet Earth in the Garden of Eden. But of course we screwed that one up monumentally. And so then there was Yeshua and Magdalene, who through their love preached the way, as in the way of love, the way of compassion, the way of kindness and faith. And so the next those templates were then set in motion. And so now the next phase of the mission was to then, in the in the image of that intention or those templates that were already set, a soul was basically divided, split, given permission to reincarnate into a primarily negatively charged soul of the feminine energy and a positively charged soul of the masculine energy. Yeah. And so it was then by decree, God's decree, divine decree, that the soul would travel through time, understanding the physical journey, understanding the divine nature as it's experienced through the negative and the positive charge, until eventually enough has come to consciousness. Those two aspects will always find their way home to each other, yeah, and will come into union by having embodied all that divine knowledge, all that divine light, and the energy of unconditional love. That is essentially the divine decree. So hence the many lifetimes, hence all the learning, hence all the understanding, and so on and so forth. Now, here is why, and this is something, so you must understand that in this journey, there is always remembering, there is always learning. I mean, always, always, always. This never stops, it's fluid, and it is in all directions of space and time, multi-dimensionally. This is not one-dimensional linear process of if this happens, then this is what happens. That is not the nature of this. What's much more important to understand is that if you will, the quantum. See, this is why this is a spiritual journey. The quantum aspects of this ascension or this trajectory, right? The negative and the positive charge. If you think of the feminine and the masculine as that negative and the positive charge, what happens when the positive and the negative come together, right? Essentially what happens is that they create a circuit that they cancel each other out. When in perfect harmony and balance, they cancel each other out to neutral. And it is this neutral, high vibrational energy that is unconditional love. That is that highest frequency of the universe. This is the journey. It is about canceling each other out through perfect balance and harmony, not through better than you us, you did this, you did that, blah 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 blah, he's such a blah blah blah, she's such a blah blah blah. That's not the nature of this journey. The divine nature, the divine mission, the trajectory of embodying divine truth in this quantum way within this physical vessel and life experience called life is the point. The whole point, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me. Period. It's not up for negotiation, and it cannot be manipulated, rationalized simply through the human ego. And within what I just said is exactly why we need to reincarnate into those seeming polarities, into oppositions, into the dark and the light, where we mirror each other and magnetize and repel until that process is neutralized in union. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm perfect in this either, at all, in fact. But I have the memory. What's challenging, of course, is applying that divine knowing into everyday physical function. That's a little bit more trickier, but it's the whole point. And through that process, sorry, I'm just referring to my notes to make sure that I stay on track. Through this process of remembering and behaving in this divine container and awareness is when we transmute the physical density for ourselves as well as the collective, allowing for more light to come in to the 3D matrix. And as that ripples out, as those awarenesses ripple out, we make more room and allow for more and more and more for that, for the collective consciousness to evolve. So the actual collective consciousness trajectory, the trajectory of planet Earth, of Mother Gaia, everything is affected because it's all connected. And so the role of the 144,000 is, sorry, I'm just reading a comment. The role of the 144,000 is to bring in this divine truth, to remember, to make this light offering. Now, here's the thing. And this is also so important, right? So as the 144 found each other, and the activations, those inner templates, dormant templates of this mission began to awaken. So it's like I literally remember like an explosion of light within my third eye and my crown chakra when these templates activated. The Kundalini energy, I almost fainted. It was so strong when all of this got activated within, like, it seemed like a minute, but it was also this like journey through time that just lasted a moment. Oh, it was just incredible. I'll never forget it. And from there, everything kicked in, right? And as this happened, and I came more into alignment with the memories, with understanding what was going on with me, because it was entirely crazy. At one point, I was actually even prepared to, check myself into, into the mental ward of St. George Hospital in Sydney. As those activations happened, right, that light then rippled out, the power of that force rippled out into the collective consciousness, right? So these are ripples, because there are different waves of awakening. These ripples continue even to today, right? These ripples of awakening of consciousness, right? these ripples of the 144,000, as that energy, as they get activated, right, they send out ripples of it's a little bit like a nuclear bomb, to be honest, like when it goes up, boom, and then there's this boom, yeah, kind of really powerful. They activate people, right, souls that are reincarnated with a template around divine love, or having some sort of a mission, light activation mission, right? So that then gets activated, yeah? And so not everyone, I will tell you this right now without a doubt, yeah? So the 144,000 are very, very rare. It's like not even 1% of the population. There's nowhere near as many as what people think. But in the same way that my mission as part of the 144,000, right, because I remember, in the same way that I have a mission in the image of Yeshua and Magdalene, beloved Jesus and Magdalene, there are souls in this life that are not necessarily the 144,000 that are having that divine awakening in the mirror as like the next layer, the next kind of awakening layer, yeah, in the mirror of the 144,000. My point is that it doesn't actually matter if you're part of the 144,000, because if you are, you will be drilled to go within mercilessly like I was. There is no break until you get to the very core of your lifetime where you receive that divine decree. You would remember, I have no doubt about it. You would absolutely remember that particular mission decree. You would do the work and you would go back, like there is no choice but to go within, and the journey within is so deep and is so intrinsic, and it is it's just so intense that you would simply know that you have received that decree directly from divine source, and you are on that journey. Alternatively, you have received the codes of light from 144,000 that have been activated within you, and so you are now having the experience of divine partnership, or that journey of coming in to union for the purposes of experiencing unconditional love in the physical. That's the whole point. So again, it's where the negative charge of the feminine energy and the positive charge of the masculine energy find the ultimate balance and harmony when they're together, without any triggers, without anything, yeah? The ultimate balance and harmony. They neutralize or essentially cancel each other out. They neutralize each other, and it is that neutral or 0 point, you would have heard that terminology. It is that 0 point which is that neutrality of divine light, of the ultimate divine intelligence and divine love, that then comes in as the creator force and expresses itself accordingly in the universe. What we are trying to do is have it come in and express itself in the physical. It's a massive, 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 massive mission. Massive mission. And because it's so massive, like the mission itself, the journey itself, the knowing how to hold neutral with your counterpart, having done all the internal work without judgment, like literally neutral, yeah? Just unconditional, where you cancel each other out and together unite in at 0 point. Holy shit, it's so massive. I don't actually know, even for me, I don't actually know if the original twins, if the 144,000 are supposed to come into a physical union and live a human life in that more traditional way. But then, you know, like when I consider the enormity of this mission, of this divine decree, but when I think about the fact that there was beloved Yeshua and Magdalene, that they preached and they spoke of divine love and they showed the way of love, then I'm sort of wondering if it's not only a possibility, but an absolute must, that two aspects of self reunite in the physical to show, to continue to do that work together, to continue to show the way in the mirror, in that expression. To show the way of love. I just don't know 100%. I know I've done a lot of work. I know we are definitely moving ahead. Just have a look at the world. Like, it's just transcending so much of the old. We are throwing off, you know, the old shit like left, right, and center. Like, it's crazy. It's amazing. The ripple effect of the work that the 144,000 have done, the ripple effect of the work that other beautiful souls have done in the name of divine love is extraordinary. And the bottom line is, it actually doesn't matter. If you're the 144, you know you are. You have the memory. You have the knowing of this. Essentially, it doesn't matter if you are or you're not the original, you know, 144 team, if you will, if I describe it in that more human way. The work is still what's really important. What else do I want to say about this? Oh, I wanted to just make a couple of things, a comment on a couple of things that I don't know. I just want to offer this for you guys to think about potentially. Because of the nature of my experience, I want to say to you, I don't actually know who coined the phrase twin flame. If I go by my own experience, the more correct description is actually twin soul, because it's a little bit like, you know, us in the human, like when women and men, like when we have twins, right? Where there's the one egg and then gets divided into two parts, and then we give birth to twins, right? It's exactly the same kind of with the soul, where the soul consciousness, the whole, is divided into two separate charges and then gets reincarnated and born into two, right? It's kind of like that. So to me, the twin soul, I guess, is the more accurate way to describe my experience, with the two flames absolutely being the mirror of each other, yeah? So it's the same soul makeup as twins would have, the same soul DNA, but it's a negative and a positive charge, yeah? But that innate soul flame is the same, yeah? So I would say that the twin flame is part of the twin soul experience. So I want to make that offering to you. I don't know, it just feels important. What else do I want to say? I don't know. I don't know, there was something else that I wanted to say, but obviously it is not important because I cannot remember it. Oh, here's the other thing. Okay, got it. So going back to making the correlation between the journey that we are making and the divine decree, right? So I'm going back to the expressions I remember, of course, from Yeshua, which are also in the Bible, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, that being the, if you want, the religious Trinity. And I personally think that it's really interesting that Trinity is the basis, right, of the early divine decree. And as we are transcending the 3D matrix, we are moving into a 5D reality, so the high frequency reality, where the foundations of the 5D matrix, crystalline matrix, are also built on the Trinity, meaning the feminine, the masculine, and then the energy that they create together, yeah? So that being the Trinity, or the Trinity of collaboration. So where there's one whole and another whole, and they come together in collaboration, yeah? So remember the age of Aquarius, 5D? So that particular Trinity. So it's connected how, and of course 5D being based on that Christ consciousness awareness of unconditional love, of co-creation, collaboration, and all of that sort of stuff. That's why the Trinity is so important. So many triangles or many trinities. So I had this, I had one of my earlier episodes, I talked about this. So you know, if you go to my YouTube channel, you can refer back to this. Yeah, so that's how, you know, the first Trinity of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit is irrelevant now in our trajectory I'm losing it, and moving forward into that 5D Christ consciousness, unity consciousness foundation. Just excuse me for a minute. Hang on a second, Jackson. Okay, I have to go. My client's here. Lots of love. Mwah. Bye. Any questions, just leave them in my comments. See you later. Mwah.